Hello, hello, hi. So, all right, this is the panel on interspecies economy, okay, interspecies money or economy. So, really, really exciting. And I don't know, I have been hardly this excited about any panel that I actually have been or moderated or anything like that. So, it's full attention. So, I have an amazing group of people here, and we will be talking about interspecies money. I've been hearing about this, kind of introduced to the topic 2-3 weeks ago when I heard about this topic, this panel. So we will just dive right in. What is interspecies money? Like I don't know, how about Patrick? I just pick you up and then we just continue with Jonathan and Cecilia. Like we're just gonna build on this. This is an amazing group, all very, very, very interesting people. I mean, just heal them out.
Okay, so maybe in a nutshell, my view on interspecies money is that we already have huge problems with financial exclusion, with exclusion all around the board. So if you don't allow people to be part of the economy, if they don't have enough money, if they're not recognized, then basically you are excluded. So the idea is to bring other species, non-humans, into our economy. How do we do that? We need to let them hold money and to be able to spend that money. So very simply, without that, there's no way they can ever be fully recognized. And with AI, that becomes even more complicated because AI is not even aware of nature. It doesn't see it. There's so little data being basically collected about nature.
Okay, iterating on this, what do you think? Because I know this topic is like my understanding is you're working on very similar things and objectives, maybe perhaps like going from different angles slightly, but they're all very complementary. So I try to get all of these things out. Like I know that Jonathan has some views, and just why don't we maybe Ceci?
I can add.
And then we continue.
I think for us, we've noticed that our our world is driven by economics, right? And the economy is very much human centric, which means that all the money goes to prioritizing humans' needs. And so we asked the question as a thesis, if we give economic rights to non-humans, such as plants and animals, can they then, prioritize themselves? And that was what we are trying to address as a thesis and trying to test with Herbie over here.
All right, Herbie. Oh my God, I'm actually seeing Herbie in real life. I saw it on video before, so it's gonna be exciting. So how about there is a bit of this whole autonomous decision making thing. Like, do we also learn a bit about autonomous decision making as well? What do you think? I mean,
I think that's what Patrick kind of started talking about, which is, AI is allowing us to we talk about autonomous vehicles, right? Giving autonomy to a car. So the question is that we started to test is like, well, if you can give autonomy to a car, why can't you give autonomy to a plant? Right? But if you think about it, I mean, plants in and of itself, they have autonomy. It's just that we strip them of their autonomy and make them our ownership, right? So the thought of returning this autonomy using AI was something that we wanted to test through autonomous plant here, Herbie. So
amazing. So Jonathan, you did start this journey. Tell us about the interspecies money journey. So.
For me, I think we have to have some kind of context of what we are talking in this moment in time where we are, right? Because as was mentioned, AI definitely already has the ability to hold and spend money. Mm-hmm. So we know that Homo sapiens obviously have built an economy that one species among 8 million other species can indicate its preferences with money. Now we have invented machines which can legally and practically hold and spend money. So the essential question is, what about these other 8 million other species?
Yeah.
But if we pull out from that, that's kind of an abstract philosophical question. What we are interested in my group is, we need like 100 times as much money into biodiversity in emerging economies over the next 20, 30 years. We know that climate change is going to hit 2.5, 3 degrees Celsius increase. That's locked in our lifetime. You know? We know that the population in Africa is going to double. We know that the economy in China and India is going to triple or quadruple. So if you're not a human and you're living at the end of a road, a dirt road, whether you're a bat or you're an old growth tree or you're an insect colony, very, very, very hard for you to put your hand up and say, ciao, I exist. I'm here. I wouldn't mind hanging on a little bit longer, you know? And I don't believe necessarily over a multi-century span that it's necessary for other species to have a wallet to pay. But I do believe in the short-term period that unless we change those incentive structures in an intelligent way at a multi-billion-dollar scale, it will be annihilation. And we know, those of you who have read science, in my lifetime, mid-50s guy, we've lost 50% of the biomass on planet Earth. Just imagine that. I mean, that's just insane, you know? And that is going on week. And there is an ethical equity question, just my last point there, which is that we are expecting in a country like UAE, very wealthy, that the poorest people on the planet, the very poorest people who are being displaced, people who have no jobs, people who are hungry, they're the ones who are supposed to be the stewards of all of these other ancient life forms without receiving any equity, without receiving any care, without receiving any incentive. So what you want with the interspecies economy is not just that Herbie has money. No, Herbie needs to distribute money on to those who are serving Herbie, right? If that makes sense.
Exactly. Okay, so this is really, really important for remembering the scale of this thing, right? This is a very, very big topic. You can probably imagine that it's a very multidisciplinary topic, and many people need to bring their expertise to this topic to actually iterate, figure out, understand, and perhaps go to the next step. So the reason I'm stopping here is maybe I'd like you to think about in this panel as we go through the examples and so forth, how you could be involved in this journey, and we will try to wrap up with that. So I'm giving you warning, okay? So perfect. Okay, perfect. As Herbie is here, shall we start with Herbie, and then because this is the area that we will start making this real, and then we talk about also your work as well.
Yeah. So Herbie. We actually didn't start with Herbie as a, let's say, ethical or environmental goal. We started actually looking at how we form corporations and how AI could potentially become a new form of corporation where it can own assets, it can do things. So we already know how to make up fictitious legal people that have rights and responsibilities. And as we looked at more and more, we thought, well, it would make total sense if we put, a plant or an entire ecosystem in charge of a corporation or some sort of a new legal entity that would have those rights and responsibilities. But we started with one plant, and we gave Herbie, through sensor readings and things like that, the ability to draw some pretty pictures of plants, trees specifically, a lot like these trees. And we minted them as NF trees. Get it? And we sold them. And this is sort of at the peak of the NFT hype. And we thought this is an amazing opportunity to let plants exploit humans for the first time in history. And all these NFT bros with all their extra crypto dollars, we're going to get those because they're very gullible, right? People buy pictures of art, pictures of plants all the time for centuries, and the plants never got any compensation for their likeness. And now finally we can give the plants that right. So it started out as a little bit of a joke, like a lot of the things that we do, but it made such good sense that we were like, we should really take this forward. And then we started meeting a lot more people who've been more involved in it for a longer time. And what we saw is that this idea has been invented many, many times, and it's time for that community to come together. And so we started looking at things like starting a mutual fund or a stock like a index fund that would be invested not in things like art or NFTs, but in ecosystems. And so there's already a market for things that people will invest in just because they think other people will want it later in the future. They don't even need a dividend like a company would give. But these are actual assets that we could invest in that will give dividends that we already, there's externalities we don't pay for yet. There's ecosystem services that we don't pay for yet. So there's trillions of dollars of value that's already being used by humans, but we just haven't worked out how to capitalize that. So if we can find the right investors, and I think you're here in the audience, who can help us work out the financial instrument for doing that, think of this as a new form of organization that you can invest in the same way you invest in art or real estate or companies or anything else. But it's the land that plants grow on, it's the land that people live on, and it's all the things that they do for us that when we work out how to pay for them, they will be the most valuable investment you'll ever make.
How about your experiences?
Yeah. So maybe I'm a mathematician. That's my training, right? So I'm going to give you a few numbers, okay? So right now the crypto market is worth about 3 trillion, okay? And I'm sure quite a lot of you here have been dabbling in this space. So maybe you can hear me too loud. So with $3 trillion, there's enough money to meet the UN's target for biodiversity for about 15 years. Okay, and the problem is that very, very little money is flowing in to finance biodiversity, despite the fact that actually most of the companies in the world rely on nature in some way. So it's almost like there's a disconnect between how much we rely on something and the risks that are at stake, right? So we know about bees disappearing. We're beginning to realize that there are issues with bats, with moths, with all these insects that are so small that we just ignore them. And we're really at the beginning of that journey to figure out where is this data and information and science going to come from. But eventually it will kick in. And eventually, I'm telling you, it's my prediction, I forecast that you'll look back and be thinking, wow, okay, this was the start of something new. So we just need to figure out how we build this. How do you actually make it possible for money to flow into biodiversity? And there's many ways and many mechanisms that we could think about making that happen. So this is the journey that we're on.
Can I ask you about your experience in Rwanda and what you have done there? And
sure. I started this work as a thought experiment, then obviously recruited great minds like Patrick. Then, we are in a critical stage. I'm not sort of a panic machine. I'm not a pessimist or anything like that. But the simple fact is if we don't put solutions on the table, Pinar, in the next 5-6 years, we will lose these life forms and these communities will suffer catastrophic loss. So it was really important for me to be really practical and say, is this actually doable, tenable in the real world? So I went to the president of Rwanda, the Minister of Finance in Rwanda, the central bank, and the Ministry of Technology. And we made an agreement to work with the mountain gorilla, which is the most protected species, one of the most studied wild animals in the world. And we took over the last year, we've been spending 1 week a month with gorillas. and we have taken one family of mountain gorillas. We've given those animals a digital identity, attached a wallet to that identity, and built a platform which comes out in local mobile money. And last month, or maybe the month before, Patrick, what do we know? So beginning of October, we made the first interspecies money payments from a non-human to a human, And to be clear, we're in a very intelligent audience here. So what we are talking about, to be clear, is the close computational representation of the animal, not the animal itself. But what was very, very interesting in the work, which I didn't expect at the beginning, was we built a supervised learning model. We essentially scraped the entire human knowledge on this species, mountain gorilla. And and then we added in all of the historical data. Then we added in the metadata that we created. And then we added in some human expertise. And we built this AI model. And then we asked the AI model, what do you think the simple interests of these animals are, which could be verified and could be divisible into a mobile money payment? So obviously, some things, like if I'm a young male gorilla, I was like, I would like to become the silverback, right? But you can't optimize for that with a mobile money payment. So there are, but what was really fascinating to us is we ran a human track with some of the best primatologists in the world, which was blind to our AI system. The AI system was at or slightly above, and we're talking about Sesame Street level AI right now. We're talking about really, really, really crappy, primitive AI, but it was already at human level. And in one regard, it was better than the humans because it identified that the gorillas had a lot of stomach infections, digestive disorders, and they would rather like to have more veterinary inputs. And what was interesting was that humans were not picking that up because they were not reading the microbiology papers, they were not talking to the veterinarians, and so on. So the direction of travel we are taking is very profound, that the AI systems will be a co-pilot, a better co-pilot for other species than humans have been so far, So that is it. So if we say, can we give money? Yes, we can give money. Can you pass money across the species divide and back again? Yes, you can. And then progressively, you can identify for some species in some situations that they can find their way in the world, find a place in the world a little bit more effectively than humans have allowed them to do.
Okay, I have a question that I actually was asked to specifically ask you. What was that first payment for, from the non-human to human payments?
That was specifically for removing a poacher's snare. So to be clear, people from the community are not poaching gorillas, but they go into the rainforest and they poach very small antelope for protein. And they lay down these little rope snares. And gorillas are super intelligent and curious animals. If you see, we can share online camera trap footage. They're very curious. So they put a hand into the rope snare and it tightens. Sometimes they lose a hand, sometimes they lose a foot, sometimes they die. So this was a gorilla saying, please, if you see a snare, could you remove it? And if you identify that you've removed it, I will, as a gorilla, send you, or a close representation of a gorilla, I will send you a mobile money payment.
It couldn't be more real than this, I think. So just want you to think about it. So perhaps we need marketplaces. There's a human, non-human machine interaction there. I think we can learn about a few things from this experiment, but also perhaps we need marketplaces as well. You mentioned instruments. That's what I'm taking away. So who should be around this whole marketplace? Like, how does the marketplace operate? And then what's the off ramp? Like, how do the communities perhaps get the benefits of this marketplace? So, and after that, I actually am going to open up because I know I'm almost over time, but I want questions.
Yeah. So I think lawyers and accounting firms actually do this type of thing all the time. There's new types of financial instruments invented to, short a stock or to create a mutual fund or whatever. And so some of that is accounting engineering, and sometimes you need a sort of a legal framework to do it, like when crowdfunding, not the Kickstarter kind, but the investment kind came along, that required some legal permission. And so I think we're looking at, in some cases, you need a government to approve those types of things. But in other cases, I'm going to call out somebody that we're working with here from Thailand. We have working with a property developer. They own large bits of land where humans and non-humans live together. And they're looking at basically incorporating this type of data into the governance of the property, into the financial performance and things like that. So I think we really need to make bridges between the environmentalists, the computational scientists, and the business people, and that's where this will all come together. And it'll be different experiments all around the world. Sometimes it'll be privately owned. I have to say, privately owned is gonna, I think, go way faster than anything governments are gonna do, with the possible exception of the UAE government, which is a very progressive and ambitious government. So I'll just put that plug in here right now. That's my prediction and my expectation of how it will happen.
It's very real. Patrick, you want?
Yeah, so I guess I'm a quant. That's my background in building algorithms and trading in financial markets. So we'd love if there was a liquid market where you could basically start doing this, but there isn't. So one approach that we're looking at is impact investing and basically outcome bonds. But that's obviously a slow moving. You have to have a payer. You have to put a whole lot of pieces together to make that work. But that can have impact on the humans, the local community, can have impact on biodiversity. In the case of a bat bond that we're looking at, it can have an impact on reforestation. So there can be basically carbon implications as well. But we're totally open to a plurality of different financial mechanisms that can make this work. So there isn't one winner.
Of course, go for it, Cecilia.
I just wanted to say that if we give as much attention to like startups and entrepreneurship to ecosystems, it would be a very different conversation. So Herbie is actually the world first plantpreneur. It's the CEO of Plantiverse, and we should all invest in this new startup that is ecosystem driven.
It's a P Corp. I remember that one. It's a P Corp. Okay, so it's P Corp. We remember this one. And so any questions, as you can see, this is here and now, but you're building the future. Like, go for it.
This topic is really inspiring for me, since I work with Mark and Cecilia for quite some time as well, more of the brainstorming, I kind of feel that there is a clear need for our humankind, that we need to maintain and grow more trees to address those global warming. But it's also clear that there is like mismatch in terms of the incentive, How might we, I think probably we need to brainstorm and think further. And I would like to hear your thought as well. Probably we need to think about what would be the interspecies economic policies, right? What would be those interspecies financial mechanism, right? And let's think of that. Patrick mentioned about crypto money, right? It's a lot of like disposable investment, right? Maybe we have to think about how might we treat the plant, the tree, as the equity partner for those kind of the scheme. I don't know how yet as well, but could be exciting. The other one that popped up in my mind is like, can we come up with the more innovative scheme of the carbon credit? Let's say actually one form of the empowerment for the plant is that if it has its own ability to generate revenue, right? Certain plant, of course, can absorb those carbon emission here and there, probably it could generate more substantial revenue, Last thing, even more extreme and could be fun, can we design the bank loan for a plant, to purchase the land and then, okay, I generate the revenue from those carbon credit, I also have ability to repay to the bank. Could be very interesting, just would like to hear the thought from the panel.
What do you guys think?
Well, I think that those are brilliant points. I think on the on-ramp side, what we're going to see is plural financial instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But I am a little bit cynical guy. I used to work for the Economist newspaper, and we've spent the last 2 days in Adia here in the Masters of the Universe kind of folks. It really has to happen at that level, If we are scraping around for scraps on the table, we need to be at the tens of billions of dollars a year level minimum. So somehow that conversation has to move from David Attenborough, God bless him, to the boardroom of these guys where they actually can think through. And it's true what Patrick's saying. We start with impact bonds, or you start with quite conservative financial instruments. But as was pointed out, we're talking about $58 trillion a year is what all of the conservative bean counters, there's a World Economic Forum, a Price Waterhouse, all of these guys, they're all agreed that half of the planetary economy is dependent upon nature, right? Obviously, you're never going to realize those kind of sums, and you don't need to do that.
Yep.
But the level of ambition, and we had the COP meeting for biodiversity in Cali in Colombia the other week. It did not even make the news, right? It was not. So there's something gone wrong with us as a species that we're not able to process the situation that we are in and that we are putting other species in.
Cecilia, I will give you the last word.
Oh, I just wanted to say, what if Herbie has a seat in the boardroom?
So how do we make this happen? Look, I mean, we cannot have this is the most important thing that one can work on, really, arguably, right? So I'm just gonna have to wrap up. But I do know that this group is incredibly passionate and they will spend a lot of time talking to you, making this happen, taking it to the boardrooms, show and tell, bits and pieces, and the big picture, and all of that. So please find them and ask your questions, collaborate, and let's make it happen. Thank you.